I discovered my sister's secret income, property damage, and exploitation, so I kicked her out and sued for compensation. I don't know how to start this without seeming crappy, but here goes. For 6 years, my sister Jess, 25, has lived with me, a 27-year-old IT professional. It started with me wanting to do the right thing as the older brother and spiraled from there. Context: Jess got pregnant at 19. I won't go into detail, but it wasn't good. She had little assistance, and our mother, who raised us as single parents, wasn't financially or emotionally able to help her. As the elder brother, I offered, "Come stay with me." I didn't think much of it. I had just acquired a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, but it was mine. I was proud of my years-long savings for that house. Like a sturdy base, you know? Jess was meant to stay for a few months to figure out her life. I sometimes assisted with the baby at night and made her feel comfortable. A few months became a year, then 2, then 6. At least Jess wasn't worthless. She generally cleaned her portion of the house and helped with shopping and shared places when her first child became older. She never paid rent. Not once. At first, I didn't want to be that person, so I didn't ask her. When I heard she was a single parent, asking for money felt wrong. Her life became pleasant over time. While living here, she had a second child, don't ask about the dad, and what started as a place to sleep became her life. My nephews, her boys, considered my house their home. I probably kept it going because I felt obligated to her. Jess and I had a difficult childhood. Our mom tried, but we were broke, and I always promised myself I'd improve. I'd help my family in need. Personally, I prefer my nephews. They're good kids despite their loudness and yard mess. About 2 years ago, I met Amy, my wife. Seriously, she's 26 and great. She understood Jess's position from the start and we clicked. Amy hardly mentioned my sister living here for the first 2 years. She occasionally asked, "When do you think Jess will get her own place?" But was patient because she understood it was complex. Amy moved in last year, changing things. I know, moving into a house with another woman and her 2 kids is hard. Jess and Amy were initially courteous, but there was unsaid tension. Amy felt that she couldn't claim the house since Jess had claimed her territory. This is where things went wrong. Gardening has always been Amy's passion. Growing up helping her grandma grow, she often remarked about how peaceful it was. Amy had been wanting to start a project for a year since moving in. We were talking about the house after dinner a few weeks ago, and Amy mentioned that she wanted to tear up part of the front yard and plant a spring garden. She had seen flowers, little shrubs, and a bench for us to sit. I liked the sound. The only thing in our yard is grass and a few forlorn plants. I thought a garden would look better, and Amy was so enthused about it, so I didn't say no. We considered hiring contractors to remove the grass, prepare the soil, and lay out the space. Amy wanted to take a few days off work to supervise and ensure it was done right. I advised her to pursue the strategy because it was sound. In retrospect, I know what I did wrong. I should have told Jess the plan. My house is mine, so I don't have to explain what I do with it. However, Jess has lived here for 6 years and her kids play in that yard often. Even though it's not her legal place, it's been part of her daily routine for so long that I should have warned her. Amy and I had strange schedules, so we scarcely saw Jess that week. She's generally around while I'm at work, and when I get home, the boys are asleep and Jess is relaxing. I didn't think calling attention to the garden was necessary because I thought she wouldn't care. A stupid assumption, looking back. On the scheduled contractor day, Amy took the day off to handle things. I was at work as normal, unaware of what was about to happen. Construction crews arrived early and tore up the front yard. Amy accompanied them to ensure proper execution. Amy said it was fine at first. She said good morning to Jess, who hardly looked at her, and went about her business. Jess then observed what was happening. She supposedly lost it when she witnessed workmen breaking up her kids' daily playgrass. Amy said the ranting started suddenly. Jess stormed out in her pajamas, wanting to know what was going on. She said Amy ruined the yard and took her kids' only play space. Amy tried to tell Jess that she and I had discussed it, but she refused. Amy reported Jess shouting. She screamed at the contractors to halt and told them not to touch anything. Amy said, "Actually, you don't get to make that call. This is our home." Jess replied, "I've lived here for 6 years. You can't rip apart my home either." Things got out of hand then. Our neighbor Karen, in her 40s, heard the ranting and intervened. Karen and Jess are friendly, her kids play with my nephews and they bond over being single moms. Later, Amy told me Karen came over and immediately took Jess's side, questioning what the workers were doing and why Jess didn't know. Amy tried to stay cool, but Karen ignored her. She called the cops. "Police, Yes. Thinking about that, I still can't believe it. Karen reported unlicensed laborers messing up the yard to 911. She claimed Amy couldn't change anything because the owner wasn't home. The police arrived quickly, I presume in a quiet neighborhood like ours, they had nothing else to do, and things grew even crazier. Amy tried to explain that she had permission because this is her house and we're married, but the officers told her to go for the night because I wasn't present to confirm. They let her take an overnight bag and then escorted her out of our residence. I was at work and unavailable when I learned about this. Our IT facility's warehouse zone prevents me from carrying my phone during shifts. Not until I checked my phone on break and saw roughly a dozen missed calls from Amy did I realize what had transpired. I felt very stupid. I left work early, got in my car, and drove home for an hour trying to understand what happened. That night, I felt like my brain was short-circuiting at home. Jess was sitting on the couch, calmly scrolling through her phone, as I entered the house. Meanwhile, Amy was absent. My sister acted like she was the victim when my wife was evicted. "Where's Amy?" I asked, trying to speak clearly. Jess innocently looked up. "She left," she remarked as if it were plain. "Police made her do it." Her tone immediately irritated me. Not yet yelling, but near. Why did Jess call the cops on her? What the hell is happening? She then defensively began her story. She claimed she had no option. Amy and the workmen were destroying her kids' play environment without her knowledge, so she acted. She talked about living here for 6 years and how Amy changed everything without appreciating her. "You don't get it," Jess remarked. "This has been my home for years. You can't rip up the yard without my permission." What I heard was unbelievable. After years of supporting my sister, who has lived here rent-free, was acting like she owned my house. "Your home?" I said. "Jessica, this isn't your home. You live here because I let you. I helped you for years, and you call the cops and kick out my wife." Then she played the victim. She cried as she said her kids loved the yard and had nowhere else to play. I loved my nephews, but her response was terrible. "You screamed at Amy," I replied, raising my voice. "You shamed her in front of workers, got the neighbor involved, and called the police. Someone does that?" Jess got up and yelled back, attempting to match my energy. "You and Amy didn't even tell me. I had to find out when strangers were digging up the yard. You don't just get to change everything without talking to me first. I've lived here for 6 years. I have a say in this." I stopped. Her statement was so ridiculous that I paused mid-sentence. "You have a say, Jess? You don't pay rent, you don't own this house, you've been living here because I've been helping you out." She said it, the line that boiled my blood. "I have tenant rights. You can't just do whatever you want anymore." I froze. "What did you just say?" Jess crossed her arms and repeated it, quieter but firmer. "I have tenant rights. I've lived here for 6 years. You can't just kick me out or change things without notice. Legally, I have rights too." I had to leave. I couldn't look at her. Sitting on the porch, I tried to relax. I was angry, not afraid, so my hands shook. Amy called when I was outside. I could tell she was upset while staying with her sister. "I can't believe your sister did that to me," she gasped. "I'm your wife, and the police made me leave our house." Hearing her pain enraged me. "I'll handle it," I assured her. "This is the last straw, Amy. Jess has to go." I went inside later. Still sitting, Jess pretended nothing had happened. I was honest this time. "You must leave," I said. She appeared surprised at me. "What? Kicking me out over a garden?" "No," I answered. "I'm kicking you out because of how you treated Amy. I'm kicking you out because you think you have more of a right to this house than my wife does. This is my home, Jess, and you crossed a line." She cried again, saying I was cruel, that she had nowhere to go, and that I chose Amy before my sister. And maybe I was. But I didn't care then. I wouldn't let her disrespect my wife and behave like she owned the place. I set a deadline. "You have 60 days to find somewhere else. I'm serious. I'll help you pack, I'll help you find a place, but you're moving out." Jess slammed her door as she stormed to her room. I stood there exhausted for a moment. I saw a lawyer the next day about tenant rights. I didn't want to be surprised if Jess fought me. The lawyer claimed Jess may have residence rights because she's lived there so long, but since there's no lease and she's never paid rent, she might be evicted easily. Just give her written notice. Yes, I did that. I printed an official notification and gave it to Jess that night. "You're really doing this?" she asked, crying. "Yes," I answered. "It's time, Jess." Felt awful. Yes, I did. I adore my sister. It wasn't simply the yard anymore. Respect, boundaries, and putting my wife first were key. Amy received my full story via text that night. When she returned home the next morning, I saw how relieved she was to be home, and I knew I had done the right thing. I've initiated official eviction, and I'm not backing down. Maybe this makes me a lousy brother, but I'm done. Any developments will be posted. Update 1, my last post on handing my sister eviction papers was a week ago. Things have risen unexpectedly, but I'm addressing it systematically and obtaining pleasant outcomes. First, Jess's reply surprised me. Instead of accepting reality, she fought back legally. She engaged a cheap consultation lawyer who assured her she had squatters' rights. Her lawyer wrote me a threatening letter alleging she had equal property rights after 6 years of residence. They didn't realize I'd already consulted an eviction-specialized real estate attorney. Jess has fundamental tenant protections, but her situation is weak, my lawyer said. She has never paid rent, and we have no written agreements governing her stay. All paperwork lists me as the sole owner and my wife, Amy, as a legal resident. Better yet, my lawyer said her garden axe helped us. It shows antagonistic behavior toward legitimate property owners. What about Karen, the neighbor who phoned the police? It seems she's generating more difficulty. She wrote on our neighborhood Facebook page that I'm evicting a single mother and her children. She tried to arrange a protest outside our house. My lawyer wrote her a cease and desist letter saying that her activities could be harassment and interference with court procedures, which backfired catastrophically. The most intriguing development was Karen's unexpected police visit. Falsifying police reports of unlicensed buildings might have consequences. She may be charged with making a fraudulent police complaint. Her attitude changed so rapidly afterward. She hasn't spoken in days. Since this began, neighborhood dynamics have changed substantially. Some neighbors initially supported Jess, likely because she had portrayed herself as a suffering single mother for years. After Karen's failed protest and Jess's financial predicament became public, people's views changed. I was surprised to learn that Jess has worked part-time for 2 years while stating she couldn't afford to move out. My lawyer subpoenaed her bank documents for eviction, and she's been saving a lot, but not for moving out. She's been on exotic holidays with friends while telling me she's poor. When Jess played her last card yesterday, things got interesting. Her lawyer made a settlement offer to depart peacefully provided I gave her $10,000 in relocation help. They said she deserved recompense for her long-term investment in the property because she cleaned and maintained the dwelling. Perfect response from my lawyer. He sent a precise estimate of market rate rent for 6 years, utilities she never paid, property tax she never paid, maintenance expenditures I paid alone, and current legal bills. The total exceeded $100,000. In exchange for her prompt departure, he graciously waived these charges. Jess's lawyer suddenly lost interest in financial claims. Through this process, the family's reaction has changed. Many, including our mom, were initially conflicted. Most of them understood my viewpoint after seeing the garden incident police report and Jess's secret savings. Mother contacted Jess to say she was out of line. Jessica didn't expect the family to support me. That was a turning moment. All along, Amy has been really supportive. She's been helping me document everything, and she pointed out to me that the garden incident's security camera footage exposes Jess and Karen's behavior. This helped our legal case immensely. Positively, Amy's garden project is progressing on a different time frame. We recruited new contractors, the old ones didn't want to return, and work will begin when Jess leaves. Amy is working with a landscape designer to improve her plan. Kids are the only thing that bothers me. Jess is using them as emotional leverage because they don't comprehend. My nephew asked me yesterday why we no longer love them, presumably from his mother. Though it breaks my heart, I remember myself that Jess caused this. Although the 60-day notice period continues, my lawyer feels we're in a solid position. Jess's tenant rights claims have backfired. By identifying herself as a renter, she's also acknowledged me as her landlord, giving me additional legal right to evict her. Jess has started packing, but she's being subtle. I think she's finally realizing it, especially since she lost the family's sympathies. Fighting this would be costly and pointless, her lawyer undoubtedly told her. I'll update when things change substantially. I expect Jess to depart early to preserve face or stay until the last minute out of spite given the situation. Either way, we're ready. After seeing how quickly her legal threats failed, I doubt she will go that far. Update 2: Karen's legal issues grew. After the police investigated her bogus report, she faces minor charges. She apologized and asked us to withdraw the allegations, but the prosecutor continued. It appears she's done this with other neighbors. The most satisfying development was from our homeowner's insurance company. They pursued Karen for higher premiums and legal fees after learning about the garden incident and bogus police report. We're using her large payout to fund a better garden project than planned. Jess made one more desperate try 2 weeks before eviction. She tried to claim first possession, claiming half ownership from her 6-year residence. When our lawyer supplied the considerable record of her rent-free status and my constant ownership claim, her new lawyer, the third she's hired, quickly dropped that claim. Family dynamics have flipped in our favor. The cousins told us Jess had been conducting a modest online business from our house for a year, which she never acknowledged while citing financial trouble. She registered her business at our location but never reported the income. The authorities received this information. We hired expert movers and security on moving day to guarantee everything went properly. Jessica tried to stir controversy one final time by claiming she owned some of our stuff. Our lawyer briefed movers simply referenced our itemized inventory and photos from when she initially moved in to establish everything was mine. Her attempt to harm the house before departing sealed her destiny. She thought she was smart by loosening cabinet handles and poking tiny holes in window screens. She didn't understand that our new security system recorded everything. Our lawyer will undoubtedly sue her for damages using this footage. The hardest thing was kids. My nephew wrote a sorrowful note that he would miss his home on moving day. Jess never opened a savings account for her kids' schooling, despite her secret income. Eventually, they'll realize their uncle cared. Amy's garden project is underway. The contractors began work the day after Jess left, and the transformation is stunning. Our modest play area for neighboring kids will be supervised, proving we're not the villains Jess painted us as. The neighborhood's response to the truth is overwhelming. Many neighbors told instances of Jess's manipulation throughout the years. One elderly couple said she borrowed money from them monthly for the kids' medical bills. A lawyer is helping them collect those cash. Karen was finally humiliated when she defended her actions at a neighborhood association meeting. Another neighbor showed her interference and other disagreements. She was expelled from Neighborhood Watch and barred from community leadership. The house is quieter, organized, and ours for the first time. Repainted the walls, fixed Jess's damaged carpets, and put up my dream home office. With a complex watering system and seasonal flower rotation, Amy's garden is becoming a neighborhood attraction. The makeover is so spectacular that a local gardening group wants to include it in their annual tour. Our legal win was greater than expected. In the final court hearing, Jess's illicit commercial activities were highlighted. The judge was harsh on her using our address for business registration and taxes. The judgment upheld our eviction and awarded property damage and legal fees. The judge's closing statements about familial goodwill misuse were pleasing. Community opinion has changed drastically. The conflict originally kept our next-door neighbors away, but they recently organized a cookout and apologized for not addressing Karen's false tale sooner. They had comparable manipulation experiences with Karen and Jess, demonstrating a trend we hadn't understood. The most shocking part is how this experience has strengthened some family relationships and severed harmful ones. Our cousins, who revealed Jess's secret business, visit often. They've helped us document everything for legal purposes and supported Amy's garden initiative. Our mom is at peace with the outcome after initially struggling. She recently informed me that seeing Amy and I handle things with respect and legality taught her that tough love is sometimes needed. She now visits regularly to help Amy with the garden and enjoy our tranquil atmosphere. We received an unexpected letter from Jess's oldest child last week. He wrote to apologize for some of his move-related comments while staying with our aunt for the summer. It was written in his own words without his mother's influence, giving us hope that we may re-establish that relationship even if Jess remains estranged. The restraining orders against Jess and Karen were approved last month, adding security and peace of mind. The judge said our thorough documentation and security footage made it one of the best prepared cases she has seen. Our lawyer's final report had intriguing figures. Nearly $150,000 was spent on rent, utilities, and damages over 6 years. A large percentage of this cash was awarded in the judge's final order, although we doubt we'll see it. But having the judgment on record feels good. I regret condoning Jess's actions for 6 years, but terminating it was right. Sometimes doing the right thing involves being someone else's villain. Amy and I are finally enjoying our home as we should, and our legal protections ensure Jess can never do this again. For comparable situations, document everything, hire a qualified lawyer, and don't let emotional manipulation take over your property rights. The preceding few months were difficult, but perseverance paid off. Our home is finally ours, and justice was more rewarding than I expected. Finally, thanks to the Reddit community. I survived this process thanks to your comments on my earlier writings. You all gave me great legal advice, and your tales helped me feel less alone. Many thanks to those who suggested the security cameras, they were essential evidence. This community's insight and support helped us win justice. Please pardon me as I help Amy with her new butterfly garden section. When you have your own space, you can do incredible things. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My fiancé let his mom dictate our wedding, including asking me not to wear white. Here's how I took back control of my life. Original post. Have you ever seen I Love a Mama's Boy? Well, that's my life basically. I, 27F, have been with my fiancé John, 28F, since high school. We dated and broke up because his mother Debbie, 53F, convinced him we were too young to be in love. We broke up and went to college. During my sophomore year we started talking on socials again. He apologized and said he missed me. We got back together. Cue the waterworks. Debbie literally cried the first time she saw we were back together and told John that I have done witchcraft on him. I've always respected Debbie out of respect for my mother and upbringing. I was not raised to go back and forth with my elders, but she definitely abuses that. Since John and I decided to get back together, she has tried to hook him up with women from her church, her job, and even asks her friends for their daughters to give it a shot. John denies all of them and Debbie says that I'm controlling. John has told her to stop, but not in a way I feel she gets the point. Anyway, 3 months ago John proposed. Deb didn't come to the engagement party. Cool. She didn't come to the family dinner we had so both sides could meet. Cool. John's dad came and apologized for his ex's behavior. He left her when John graduated high school. I told him don't worry about it. The problems really began when John decided to confront his mother about how she's behaving toward our whole engagement. This turned on the light bulb in his brain, as he's always tried to ignore it and tell me to ignore her. She gave him a sob story about how she got pregnant with him before marriage and never really got to have a wedding, and this is triggering her. She had a shotgun wedding at the courthouse. He asked her what she needed to feel comfortable and she responded that if she wore white and I wore a soft pink or lavender she would feel comfortable. My fiancé for some reason thought this was a fair compromise. He also said, not asked, that his mom could walk me down the aisle so she can get her moment in her dress. I told him absolutely not, and we got into an argument about it. I told him that it's insane that he would argue with me to defend his mom's honor, but wouldn't do the same the other way around. He accused me of being petty and selfish. It was bad. We both have agreed to cool off, but by how heated it got I could tell we both almost agreed to call it off. Now we're in a weird space and I love John, but now see how much he lets her impact our life. I just imagine her sitting at home with this evil grin knowing she's ruining my relationship with John and he's just putty in her hands. I think I should just call off the wedding. AIO? Or is it just a color? Top comments. Ducky's mom. This isn't about a dress color. It's about control and possibly a dash of humiliation. Do you really want to put down roots, start a family, with a man willing to bend backwards for his mommy to the point of telling his bride she can't wear white but his mom gets the glory? I shudder to think what having kids with this man would look like. Hallucinogenic, he can marry his mother in her white dress then. What an absolutely unhinged request. Any self-respecting man would be appalled to even bring this to his intended bride. Anon, 466544. You're not overreacting, but do you want a husband who will prioritize his mother's feelings over yours? Because this will not change after you get married. This is him showing you his priorities. Update 1. Hey everyone, not sure if this is the update everyone wanted, but this is what happened since my last post. I laid out a couple of talking points that I couldn't articulate over the rage. I met up with John after work at home. I was at the gym letting off steam. We spoke on everything and made plans to speak to his mother. John came home remorseful. He told me he was anxious about it and brought it up to a coworker and friend about how I don't want to compromise. Apparently his friend, God bless his soul, went off on him about him being cringy. This angered me. So when I say it, it's a problem, but another man tells you and now you see the other side? I brought up my talking points, him being easily manipulated. This was also proved when I said he would listen to whatever another man said before his partner. Even though his friend agreed with me, it hurt that he didn't listen to me. His mom went out of her way to break us up with this silly request. He was way more open to this theory now, knowing how cringe he looks even telling this situation to someone else. I compared it to a father removing a bride's wedding garter. He got the point. He agreed to his mom's crazy request before even talking to me. He claimed he didn't. He told her he'll see how I feel about it and just brought it up to me. I asked why he did not see that his mother walking down the aisle on his wedding day was extremely creepy. He said it's just a dress in his eyes. He just didn't want his mom to miss the wedding. I told him there will be no wedding if he doesn't straighten up. He said he understood. Me showing him how blatantly obvious it was that she hates me. She didn't even ask to wear white alongside me, which is still weird, but that I don't wear white at all as if I'm some impure whore. Thanks Reddit because I wasn't even thinking of that one. He said he didn't see it that way, he just knew she hadn't been showing up because she said seeing me in white hurts her. So I said, do you not hear your own mom saying she wants to be the bride herself? That she can't stand it being me? It finally looked like a ding went off in his head. Me asking him what role would she play in our wedding, childbirth, Mother's Day and everything to come? Would I always come second place? He assured me I wouldn't and he realizes how bad he fucked up. He was just trying to keep the peace. I asked by always making her happy and making me miserable. I refused to live my life this way. He agreed and said he was sorry and that he wouldn't want me to be miserable. We have no children yet but we created a plan and how to deal with any big milestone. She won't be there for anything unless I'm comfortable with it. And I won't be unless she does a 180. I asked what his mom said to change his mind and you all guessed it, she cried. She cried about how her baby was getting taken away from her. How she never got her wedding. How his dad left her and she was alone and had no one else. That she felt sick and just wanted to experience a real wedding before she dies. She is perfectly healthy unless there's something she hasn't told us? Elle just told him if that was enough to manipulate him what's to say he won't turn on me again. He said his friend and dad talked sense into him about how he was going to lose me. I told him today was the last straw for me. He had to do 4 things to keep me engaged to him if he even cared to. Go LC with his mom and do not let her make any decisions on our wedding. Which will be postponed another year to see if he actually sticks to his word. He has to go to counseling, individual and couples counseling. He has to speak to his mom with me present about her behavior toward me because every time he goes by himself he comes back with a reason why he left it alone. He must create strong boundaries and learn to uphold them. He agreed. Then came the bad part. I showed him the post. I felt so bad as he read everyone rip him to shreds in the comments. I could see how uncomfortable he was as he read how much of a mama's boy he was and other things about his mom. He was hurt that I agreed that I should leave in some comments. He read for a few minutes until he saw someone call him a spineless "see you next Tuesday," and then gave my phone back. He said it was really harsh but I had to show him how crazy the situation sounded even if it was just to keep the peace on a surface level. Him reading the post was icing on the cake. He said he saw everyone telling me to leave and his heart physically started hurting knowing that he deserved it. We called his dad, who I'm no longer calling future FIL because I will call this wedding off tomorrow if he doesn't have my back when we speak to his mom. John's dad Dan, who I'll name since he's a big part of this update. Dan also read John the riot act again. He was relieved John decided to get his act together. We agreed to go to Deb's house tomorrow with Dan and John's aunt. My dad is tagging along. John has said he will tell his mother that she can't under any circumstances make our wedding about her. He also said if she does cry or try to guilt trip him he will tell her he's going NC. I feel terrible as getting a man to stop talking to his mother isn't something I ever thought I even wanted. I doubt Debbie will come around, especially not tomorrow with all of us against her. I don't know if John will backtrack as soon as he gets there. I have explained if he doesn't grow a spine I'm leaving. He either can marry me or marry his mom. But that's my ultimatum. He said he chooses me. We'll see I guess. This all should make me happy but I still feel icky. I'll update tomorrow after we all talk to Debbie. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with the last update. This is a bit long so buckle up. Some people reached to disrespect me. I honestly don't care if you don't believe my story or find me annoying, but messaging me, calling me names, being disrespectful and or saying I shouldn't wear white to my own wedding is classless. I won't respond and I genuinely hope you all get the help you need for whatever trauma makes you that much of an angry person. To all the people who have reached out with positive vibes and advice, thank you so much you cutie patooties. Anyway, John and I met up after work and we headed to pick up Dan. John's aunt couldn't make it. My dad was meeting us there. I had really bad anxiety. I told Dan and Dad they should give us a few before knocking so she doesn't feel ambushed. They agreed. Here's the part everyone was waiting for. We get to Debbie's. My heart feels like I'm going up the world's tallest roller coaster slowly. John is quiet. We get there and he gives her a firm but respectful "Hey mom." We sit down and John tells her we came to talk to her. She asked what's wrong. John got right into it. He bluntly said to her that her actions toward me for years have been petty. Her not showing up for any of our wedding events was unacceptable to him. He flat out asked her why she has a problem with me. I genuinely thought he was going to start with the dress situation. He went for the root of it all. Debbie acted like she had no idea what he was talking about. She has actively tried to get him to cheat, leave me for other women, but in that moment was shocked, and doesn't know where this was coming from. She said she has no problems with me and loves me like a daughter. She looked at me like she expected me to talk, but like I said to you all, I wanted to see what John had to say. He asked her to be honest and named all the times he's recalled that she insulted me to my face and behind my back. He mentioned she has also tells him he could do better every time I'm not around. This was news to me, but am I shocked? No. Deb was livid. She genuinely couldn't believe he outed her like that. She starts going off on him, calling him disrespectful and saying he was disrespecting his own mother for an outsider. She kept saying, I know she made you do this. I know she's the one making you disrespect me like this. John was trying to reason with her and get her to calm down. I text Dan and my dad to come in. Once they were inside, Deb became a different person. She was startled as she wasn't expecting them, and then all of the things she was just saying went out of the window. She turned to Dan and my dad and said John walked in and just started yelling at her because of me. My dad looked at me and I shook my head no. Once Dan and Dad got in, everything was calmer for a little while. She went back to denying she didn't like me. They all told her that it was obvious. That the dress request was shameful of her. She immediately replied, it's shameful that I won't let her son spend time with her. John said that's not true. At this point I'm burning inside. I wanted to correct all of her inaccuracies, but I stood quiet. John asked her what's the real issue with OP. Deb starts saying how she knew I was going to be an issue since we were in HS. She said that once John got with me, his grades started dropping, which isn't true. That he stopped making time for family. Also, not true. That he once didn't show up to celebrate Mother's Day with her a few times because of my birthday. My birthday is in April, Mother's Day is in May. That once we got back together he forgot about her completely because I made him abandon her. He goes to her house at least 3 times a week. She said the fact that we had the engagement party without checking how she felt about it was wrong, and all the evidence she needed to see what kind of woman I am. My dad pointed out that she didn't pay for the engagement dinner to have any input on it. Dan asked her was she thinking of asking to wear white at our wedding? Why is she so hungry for attention? Her face got red and she went off. She told Dan maybe if he would have properly married her and gave her a real wedding she wouldn't feel left out. Dan straight up called bullshit and said that she didn't want to have a real wedding even though he tried to convince her. The reason being that her mother told her pregnant brides are tacky. She started crying. I honestly felt bad for Debbie here. Mothers, be nice to your daughters or you'll create Debbies. My dad got everyone to calm down. John finally spoke again and told his mom that he can't keep defending her when she won't even try to respect me. That for his sanity and our relationship, he's going LC. Deb kept crying and said that John can't leave her for dead, she's the only mother he'll ever have. Mothers are forever. Wives are not. I'm not even his wife yet, and I'm already tearing apart the family. He kept going. He told her that we are going to get married. She can't respect me or stop crossing boundaries, she'll get cut off completely. That his visits are dropping down to 1 every 2 weeks and that she needs to call less. She started going off. She knew it. I'm doing something for him. What did I do to her son? I'm a manipulator and a problem. She told my dad he raised a demon. My dad shot back at her to watch her mouth. John kept shouting, Mom stop, Mom stop. But she kept screaming and then she started hyperventilating. Whoever called it, you might be able to see the future. She was gripping John's arm saying she can't breathe. This was when I said to myself, oh no. He's about to flip-flop. He looked at me and I knew he knew what I was thinking. John got her a cup of water, then asked his dad if he could make sure his mom was okay and asked my dad to take Dan home. Dan and Dad agreed and his mom started crying louder. She literally screamed, I can't breathe, as we walked out so he could hear her. I felt fucking terrible and I finally spoke. I told John I'm sorry. And I understand if he felt bad. He said he knew she was faking it but his instincts wanted to run over and make sure she was okay. I asked, are you? He said no, but he looked really sad about it. My dad walked out behind us. My dad has never seen this side of Deb. Neither have I. She's always been catty or shady toward me, but this was insane. My dad straight up told John that his mom needed help with her mental health. John said he's going to talk to his aunt about getting her help. We went home and John cried. He said he cried because he watched his mom villainize him and tell others that he just walked in and verbally abused her. He said it reminded him of the times he would fight with his dad because his mom would say Dan would just come from work and yell at her for no reason. I guess it was deja vu for him. He was silent after she said that, so I do believe it struck a nerve with him. He decided to go NC for now. I did ask him if he was okay with me posting this part and he said yes. Before we went to Deb's house, I called a couple of counselors in our area to check availability, and our first couples therapy session is next month. It's a little while away. He called his provider today to check for a therapist within his insurance and got an appointment for himself for the 23rd. The ball is rolling and John seems like he's on the same page as me. I know this is killing him though. Dan called us and let us know he got Deb to calm down. He said he spoke to her as best as he could about her harming her own relationship with John, but she didn't want to hear it. Thank you, Reddit. I really didn't expect this to blow up like this. The advice and well wishes I got from this was so overwhelming, in a great way. While I should be happy, something about it all just makes me feel down. I hope that Debbie gets better and we can one day have her in our lives. Something about that comment about her mother made me hurt for little Debbie. Hopefully one day I'll get to hear her stories. Now I'm going back to my regular life and hopefully I won't ever have a dramatic update for you guys ever again. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My parents defended my brother's $40,000 debt, tried to access my bank account, and called me selfish for saying no. Here's how I fought back. I've been lurking around here for a while, but until now, I never felt the need to write anything. I'm 35 feet. I need some perspective because my family has finally pushed me to the limit. Somehow, I'm always portrayed as the villain, regardless of what I do. Dealing with this prolonged family issue that appears to have no end in sight has truly worn me out, both mentally and emotionally. I have developed my career from the ground up and am currently employed as a middle manager at a large Silicon Valley software company. I've worked hard and had many sleepless nights to earn all I own, including my house, car, and money. You wouldn't believe the terrible familial dynamics I had to overcome to reach this point in my life. I'll give you some background on our family's history. Since I turned 18, I have been totally self-sufficient. And I mean it in every sense of the word, financially, emotionally, and intellectually. The way my parents raised my brother and me was, to put it mildly, problematic at best, and they weren't exactly winning any parenting prizes. As a middle-class suburban family outside of Boston, we appeared to be the ideal American family. We lived in a good neighborhood with good schools. My mom taught elementary school part-time, and my dad worked in insurance. Beneath that idyllic exterior, though, there was an unwritten rule that influenced my entire upbringing. I was supposed to be the responsible one, the model, the one who always had to lead by example, while my younger brother Jason, 27 million, could do no wrong. From a young age, the inequities were brutally apparent. One instance in particular came to me when Jason was 8 years old and I was 16. My parents grounded me for a month after I received a B+ on a single chemical test, claiming I was wasting my potential. When Jason was caught robbing our dad's wallet for the third time that same month, they just said he was going through a phase. This was only one instance of the ongoing inequity in the way we were handled. It wasn't an isolated incident. Every time Jason made a mistake, and trust me, he made a lot of mistakes, it was ignored. "He'll learn eventually," my mother would remark with that dismissive wave of her hand, or "he's just sensitive," which was code for let's pretend this never happened and hope he figures it out. In the meantime, it felt like the sky was dropping if I even stumbled. The pressure was relentless and debilitating. "Why aren't you trying harder? You need to set a better example for your brother. Don't you know he looks up to you?" I worked part-time at a local coffee shop, volunteered at the library, took all of my AP classes in high school, and tried to keep my GPA flawless because universities look for that kind of thing. Jason, on the other hand, rarely attended class and mostly stayed in the basement to play video games. Nevertheless, I somehow had to try harder. No matter what I accomplished, it was never sufficient. They would question why I didn't receive an A+ in calculus if I brought home straight A's. Rather than praising me, my mother's first reaction after I was chosen valedictorian was, "I hope this doesn't make your brother feel bad about his grades." This scenario continued into adulthood, with Jason struggling to pass his classes and everyone saying, "At least you're doing your best, sweetie, not everyone is cut out for academics." The bigger the stakes, the worse it got, if anything. Jason dropped out of community college after one semester because it was too stressful. My parents paid his rent for a gap year, that ended up being 5 years of him finding himself. I worked 2 part-time jobs to pay for state college, one at a coffee shop in the mornings and another at a table waiting at night. I still recall the evening I moved away when I was 18. I was able to rent a small studio apartment with a roommate because of the money I saved from my part-time work. My dad said, "Well, you'll need to start paying rent if you're staying here anyway," when I told him I was leaving home, but they never asked Jason for $1 when he was still living at home at the age of 25. Because job hunting was emotionally draining for him, they even granted him an allowance. They never once offered to cover my living expenses or college tuition, not that I expected them to. But it still hurt to see them go above and beyond for Jason while I was on my own. I worked several jobs, took out student debts, and ate more dinners of ramen noodles than I would want to recall. Jason, meanwhile, continued to live with them until he was in his mid-20s, jumping from one failing job to another while always coming up with an explanation that it wasn't his fault. He would say things like, "The manager had it out for me," or, "The company's toxic culture wasn't a good fit for my personality." He never acknowledged his own responsibilities and always pointed the finger at something outside of himself. And by covering up his filth and offering excuses, our parents encouraged this conduct at every opportunity. I worked 2 jobs while attending college, graduated with honors, and got an entry-level job at a software business. I worked my way up from there, putting in a lot of overtime and seizing any chance to get more education and certification. My parents never offered to help, and I never asked for it either. However, they had no trouble approaching me for financial assistance whenever Jason needed a little help to get back on his feet. Now fast forward to last week. It was remarkable in and of itself that my mother called. You must realize that my mom doesn't call to talk. She never calls to say hello, check in, or inquire about my life. She calls when she's in need of things. I'm referring to the type of call that begins with excessively pleasant small talk, as if they're attempting to win you over before revealing the true reason for the call. That's precisely what took place last week. "How's work? Are you still at that tech company? Have you been eating well?" she asked at the beginning, which was so unusual that I knew something was up. My mother doesn't give a damn about my diet. The only thing she knows about my job is that I do something with computers. She couldn't even recall the name of my firm when we last spoke, which was during Thanksgiving 3 months earlier, even though I had been employed there for the previous 5 years. She seemed to be trying too hard to sound casual, and the entire conversation felt forced. She inquired about my boyfriend. I've been single since my engagement ended last year, another narrative in which Jason played a not so insignificant role, and apartment. I've owned a house for 2 years. Even my cat, to which I have never given birth due to an allergy. Every question reminded me of how little she truly knows about my life and felt like a tiny paper cut. Jason was in trouble once more when she struck me with it. I wasn't shocked. Jason seems to get into problems all the time. However, I didn't anticipate this. He had apparently accrued $40,000 in debt, not the kind of debt that can be dismissed as young folly, such as credit card debt or student loan debt. No, he had borrowed from some very dubious individuals, and they were now sincerely demanding their money back. My mother's voice broke as if she were going to cry, which I'm sure she believed would get me to give in. It has worked numerous times. She wasted no time in heaping on the guilt. "You've done so well for yourself. You've always been the strong one. Jason's not like you. He needs your help. He's sensitive. You know how he gets when he's under pressure." As I sat in my home office, trying to take in what she had just said, I looked out the window at the neighborhood that I had worked so hard to afford. $40,000. How could anyone possibly accumulate that much debt? My mom dismissed it like she was swatting away a bothersome fly when I asked her how it happened, half anticipating some ludicrous explanation about a botched business endeavor or a scam he had fallen for. She said, "That doesn't matter right now," with the same contemptuous tone that always made my stomach turn. "What matters is that he's your brother. Family helps family. We've always taught you that family comes first." For years, they have used that line, "family helps family," as an excuse. When they asked me to lend Jason money for his revolutionary cryptocurrency investment, which he lost all of in 2 weeks, that's what they stated. They said that after his girlfriend ejected him, he took my credit card information. They wanted me to let him stay at my house. Every time they required me to cover for Jason, fix anything for him, or clean up a mess he had made, they said that. And each time, I overcame my annoyance and followed their instructions. I did not want to be the villain. Because deep down, there was still that little girl who longed for her parents' approval, thinking that perhaps this time they would recognize my assistance, my sacrifice, and my continual saving of their beloved boy. But $40,000? It wasn't merely a favor or a loan. It was a down payment for a home. That was a year of arduous labor. That served as my safety net, emergency reserve, and security for the future. This time, I couldn't do it. I told her no for the first time in my life, right up. I apologized, but I was powerless to save Jason from the disaster he had made. The tone of the conversation suddenly changed. In roughly 2 seconds, my mother moved from being pathetic to being enraged. Had it not been so horrifying, the metamorphosis would have been nearly remarkable. The mother's gentle, worried voice had vanished, to be replaced by an icy, piercing voice. She began to scream. "You're being selfish?" Her voice getting louder as she spoke. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You're abandoning your family when they need you most." The nuclear option was even mentioned by her. "Do you want his blood on your hands? He borrowed from some nasty folks. What would happen if he did?" The manipulation was so obvious that it was quite comical. Nearly. However, her attempt to hold me accountable for Jason's bad decisions, again, was not amusing. As though his choices, errors, and total lack of accountability were somehow my fault. Then I ended the call. I was no longer able to listen to it. My chest felt constricted, as if someone were sitting on it, and my hands were shaking so much that I could hardly press the end call button. However, behind the familiar burden of familial expectations, the shame, and the fear, there was comfort. I was relieved that I had maintained my position for once. I've put in too much effort to be brought down by the poor decisions of others. I've devoted years to developing my job, becoming self-sufficient, and establishing a life apart from serving as Jason's safety net. I simply couldn't bear the idea of discarding all of that. Of maybe jeopardizing my own financial stability to allow his recklessness to continue. However, the problem with growing up in a dysfunctional home is that guilt creeps in almost instantly, even if you know you're making the right decision and are positive you're acting in your own best interests. Even though I know I'm not the bad guy, my family has a way of changing the facts, making me doubt my own judgment, and making me feel that way. And it was the same this time. I can't get rid of the thought that perhaps I made the wrong choice, even though I said no and know it was the right one. At the moment, confronting my family seemed like the correct thing to do, but now I'm left wondering if I've made things worse. But what if they're correct? Could I be being self-centered? What if Jason does suffer as a result of my refusal to assist? The logical side of my brain understands that I have no responsibility for my brother's decisions or the results of those decisions. However, a part of me that is still that young child, begging for her parents' approval, continues asking herself, what if? To be honest, I have no idea what will happen next. That call was only the beginning. I was totally unprepared for what transpired next. I suspect that this is not the end. Particularly with Jason, my parents have never been good at taking no for an answer. I'm trying to remain strong, though. I'm trying to keep in mind that I have the right to defend my future and myself. As this situation develops, I suspect I'll require additional guidance. I'll provide an update shortly. First update. First of all, I want to thank everyone who left encouraging comments on my previous post. To be honest, I didn't anticipate such a strong reaction. The previous week has seen a sharp increase in tension, and not in a positive way. Do you recall that I sensed this wasn't the end? Yes, I was correct. As soon as I hung up on my mom, the harassment campaign began. Initially, it was just a flurry of text messages. The typical guilt-tripping fare. Then, however, things became considerably more sinister. My bank notified me of the unusual behavior last Tuesday. Someone had tried to use what seemed to be stolen personal information to get into my account. I received a direct call from the bank's fraud department. They claimed that a huge transfer attempt using my credentials had been detected by their security system due to the suspicious IP address. The fraud investigator told me that the person who attempted to access my account had my mother's maiden name, my social security number, and even the name of my first pet, all of which are standard security questions. Jason would be the only one with access to all that information. Upon realizing that my own brother would attempt to steal from me, I promptly updated all of my security questions and passwords. Very difficult. Money was no longer the only factor in this. This was a completely new kind of betrayal. This is where it becomes even more bizarre though. One of the few relatives with whom I truly get along, my Aunt Catherine, gave me a call yesterday. It seems that my parents have been giving a totally different account of what happened to everyone in the family. They have portrayed me as some cold-blooded monster who is living in luxury while her brother suffers, and they claim that I am hoarding my fortune while poor Jason is fighting for his life. My aunt called to hear my side of the tale, happily not believing it. God bless sensible family. She was startled when I told her about the attempted bank fraud. She also disclosed information that I was unaware of. It seems that Jason had attempted to borrow money from multiple family members in recent months, each time claiming a different reason for his need. He told a wide range of stories. He told our old grandma that he needed money to pay his medical fees. It was for a sure-thing investment opportunity, according to our cousin Mark. It was to launch a modest business, according to our Uncle Steve. He informed our parents that he owed money to dangerous people, but none of these allegations fit. But this morning was the real kicker. My dad sent me an email, which was the first time he had spoken to me directly since this whole situation began. It was icy, cunning, and, to be honest, a little menacing. This is a portion of his writing. Your actions are forcing us to reconsider your position in this family. Your mother and I have always provided for you, supported your education, and given you every opportunity to succeed. Your current success is a direct result of our sacrifices. If you continue to abandon your brother in his time of need, there will be consequences. Think carefully about your next move. The part about them funding my education made me laugh. My student loan payments are still ongoing. However, the warning was unmistakable: assist Jason or risk being cut off from the family. They believe they can control me by threatening to isolate me, so they are attempting to use familial ties as leverage. They don't seem to realize that I've been essentially cut off from them for years. We have always had a conditional relationship. I have to take care of Jason, I have to play the part they put me in, and I have to accept their perverted definition of family devotion. I have discussed the attempted account hack with the IT security team at my firm. They are assisting me with protecting all of my gadgets and accounts connected to my job. Additionally, I've begun recording every single text, email, and voicemail. Even if I find it hard to believe, I must gather proof against my own family. The most bizarre aspect of it all? Jason's girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend, depending on their present situation, sent me an SMS. Jason has been acting strangely recently, she told me. We've never been close, but she was worried enough to contact me after hearing him make cryptic remarks about getting what's his, and teaching people lessons. This weekend, I'm going to install security cameras at my house. I may be too cautious, but I'm not taking any chances in the wake of the bank account disaster. I never imagined that I would need to defend myself against my own family, but I suppose that's where we are at the moment. $40,000 is only the beginning for those who are wondering why I don't just pay the money to make this all go away, even if I wanted to, which I don't. According to my aunt's disclosures of Jason's previous borrowing attempts, his overall debt is likely substantially larger. Helping my brother is no longer the goal of this. It's about supporting a detrimental behavior pattern that must end. Next week, I have an appointment with a financial advisor to go over all of my accounts and implement additional security measures. In order to understand my alternatives in the event that the situation worsens, I'm also thinking of talking to a lawyer about the attempted fraud, not necessarily to file charges. If something important occurs, which is likely to happen shortly given the current state of affairs, I'll provide another update. I appreciate you letting me vent, and I want to thank everyone who commented on my previous post and shared similar experiences. Knowing that I'm not the only one coping with this type of dysfunction in my family is comforting. Second update: I made the decision to speak with Jason face-to-face following the attempted bank fraud I detailed in my previous update. The events that followed were startling and yet completely expected. Jason's residence was my destination yesterday evening. It's a dilapidated establishment in a dubious area of the city. He was unshaven, had heavy circles under his eyes, and was wearing a tattered t-shirt when he eventually opened the door. His initial remarks: "You were patient enough to arrive. My attempt to hack my bank account is not an apology. No justification for the debt of $40,000. As usual, just entitlement." He gave me a disturbing response when I questioned him about the bank fraud. Mom and Dad said that if things became severe enough, you would give in. I was merely expediting the procedure. He said it so nonchalantly, as if he were talking about the weather instead of confessing to a murder. At that point, I became aware of something troubling about his flat. There were several phones and what seemed to be credit card statements with several names on them on his coffee table. He swept them into a drawer before I could get a better look. When I understood that this might be more than simply my bank account, my stomach fell. My parents arrived just as I was ready to depart. When I got there, Jason had apparently texted them. They stormed inside his residence as if it were their own. Naturally, Mom was crying, and Dad was enraged. This led to the most heated family argument we've ever experienced. Dad began by expressing their disappointment with my self-centered actions. Mom said that they had failed as parents because I had shown myself to be so heartless. The worst part is that they really defended the bank fraud attempt when I brought it up. Mom said, "He was desperate. When you declined to assist, what option did he have? People sometimes make mistakes when they're backed into a corner," Dad continued. What I was hearing was unbelievable. "So, if it involves family, is identity theft acceptable?" I inquired. How did they react? No matter what, family helps family. I lost it at that point. Years of repressed annoyance were released. I explained to them how their favoritism had impacted me and how Jason became the person he is today as a result of their enabling. I cited concrete examples, such as their refusal to assist me with my college tuition while paying for Jason's unsuccessful attempts, their repeated attempts to coerce me into giving him money, and their persistent manipulation of my emotions. What did Jason say? "At least I'm not a stuck-up bonite who thinks she's better than everyone else," he grinned. In fact, Mom gave a nod of approval. I came to the important realization that they would not change at that point. Never. Money was no longer the only factor in this. This concerned a family relationship that was essentially poisonous and would never get better. I pulled out my phone and listened to the full recording of our chat. How did they look when they saw that I had proof that they were supporting bank fraud? Priceless. "This recording goes straight to the police if anything happens to my accounts again," I declared. "And I will file charges this time, Jason." Mom began to complain that I was endangering them. My father referred to me as manipulating. For the first time, Jason appeared concerned as he stood there. Dad took hold of my arm as I was about to depart and said something I will never forget. "Never expect to be welcomed in this family again if you walk out that door." I gave him a direct look and said, "That sounds more like a promise than a threat," before leaving. I had dozens of missed calls and messages when I came home. I blocked their phone numbers. I then opened my laptop and began sending an email to my entire extended family, including screenshots of threatening messages, a transcript of the tape discussion, and documentation of the bank fraud attempt. I will no longer serve as the family's scapegoat. I'm tired of being controlled. I will no longer serve as Jason's personal ATM. Above all, I have finished maintaining their secrets. It's likely that this will be my final update. I have a hunch that everyone's situation is going to drastically change soon. I'm concentrating on defending myself right now, which includes researching security systems and speaking with a lawyer about possible restraining orders. Thank you to everyone who has been keeping an eye on this situation and lending support. Your remarks gave me the courage to advocate for myself today. Third update. Everything has changed since my last update, which was a month ago. I made the decision to no longer preserve the family's secrets after the altercation at Jason's place. When I eventually revealed the truth, this is what transpired. Do you recall the email I said I was sending to the extended family? Well, I made the decision to take things a step further. I made a thorough social media post with screenshots of the attempted bank fraud, Jason's own admissions of guilt, and a recording of my parents justifying his behavior as proof. I only wanted the truth to be known. I wasn't attempting to get revenge. The reaction was tremendous. Other victims of Jason's schemes began to come forward within a few hours. According to my cousin Tim, Jason had taken out a $5,000 loan for an unfulfilled business venture. Aunt Beth said that he had persuaded her to co-sign a loan, which she is currently repaying. Even the mystery surrounding my grandmother's missing jewels from last Christmas had a likely suspect all of a sudden. However, Jason's ex-roommate made the most important disclosure when he revealed how Jason had used his identity to open many credit cards. Being too ashamed to come forward, he believed that no one would take him seriously because of my parents' perfect son. Someone in HR at the business where Jason had just had an interview saw the social media post. His past involvement with financial fraud piqued their curiosity. It goes without saying that he was not hired. My parents' standing in their social group suffered greatly. They had supported their struggling son for years while presenting themselves as the ideal parents, handling one ungrateful daughter. Everyone was aware of the reality now. After complaining to their church mates about my selfishness, they began to distance themselves from me. All of a sudden, Dad's golf friends were too busy to play every week. Mom attempted to minimize the harm by accusing me of lying, but the facts were clear. They were unable to justify their own recorded comments, the text messages, or the bank records. Their carefully constructed image fell apart. When Jason's current roommate viewed the post, it was the real game changer. When he consented to share his apartment, he was unaware of Jason's past. Jason received an eviction notice within a week. People don't want to live with someone who tries to commit bank fraud, it turns out. According to what I've been told, Jason works 3 jobs to pay off his debt. He is finally being held accountable for his acts, and his credit has been damaged. Surprisingly, my parents have stopped using social media. No more quotes about ungrateful kids or passive-aggressive posts about family values, every day. Life has never been better for me. That job promotion I applied for, I understand. I've been able to concentrate on my professional and personal development without the continual drain of family turmoil and money exploitation. What a concept. I'm finally meeting someone who respects and understands boundaries. Mom and Dad no longer discuss me at all, according to the few family members I still communicate with. Put an end to guilt tripping. No more attempts at manipulation. At last, they've realized that sometimes social accountability is the result of acts having repercussions. To everyone who has to deal with toxic family members, sometimes letting the truth speak for itself is more effective than going to court. The wrong people will come out, and the right people will listen. Legal repercussions were not my family's biggest fear. Rather, it was the public discovering who they really were. By speaking up instead of keeping quiet, I not only freed myself from their control but also gave others the confidence to defend themselves. We appreciate everyone who has supported and followed this adventure. I feel really free for the first time in my life. It's acceptable when the family you were born into isn't the one you need. Now, I'm assembling my own network of people that respect integrity, accountability, and sincere concern for others. My last update will be this one. Now that the story is over, I'm prepared to begin a new chapter free from guilt, deception, and the never-ending weight of providing for others. And what do you know? No lawsuit ever could make that feel better. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.